525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments, oh dear. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, in laughter and strife. In 525,600 minutes, how do you measure a year in the life? How about love? How about love? How about love? Measuring love. Seasons of love. Seasons of love.
525,600 minutes, 525,000 journeys to plan, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure the life of a woman or a man?
In truths that she learned, or in times that he cried, in bridges he burned, or the way that she died.
It's time now to sing out, though the story never ends. Let's celebrate, remember a year in the life of Kris. Remember love, love.
You got to remember the love. You know that love is a gift from up above. Share love, give love, spread love. Measure your life in love.
Seasons of love. Seasons of
Measure your life in love.
Good morning. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church Online. We are glad you are here. My name is Steve Mason, and I am one of the worship associates. As Unitarian Universalist, we don't ask people to subscribe to a particular creed or make any affirmation of faith. Instead, we share the conviction that every single person on earth has the inherent worth and dignity and deserves to be treated with kindness. Community Church also shares a mission to nourish spirits, work for justice, and transform lives. Today, our very talented pastor, Kris Cervantes, will share a sermon titled Love in the Time of Pandemic, 1 year of lockdown, uploads, and overload. As we pass the official 1-year anniversary of the pandemic, I am reminded of the saying, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and the light we are seeking is the end of this pandemic and a much brighter future. Remember, the tunnel is only temporary.
Our call to worship this morning comes to us from the Reverend Gretchen Haley. Life comes for us in 1,000 different ways, undoes plans and upends traditions, knocks down the doors of our defense in a moment. Every expectation releases. like the in and out of breath. Life is urgent and also so unbearably slow, and does not take well to our fantasies of control. We gather here together to practice surrendering to the waves of grace, of grief. In song, in silence, in story, we come to remember the possibility of a larger call, that we might offer our gifts with a surprising generosity, that we might release ourselves from the needing to know, that we might simply be present to this beauty, these partners, this hope that we make together. Come, let us worship together.
As we light our chalice, may the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve with a spirit of love and freedom. UU is a religion characterized by a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. UUs assert no creed, but instead are unified by their search for spiritual growth. Please join me in saying it together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another.
Writer Anne Lamott says that there are three basic forms of prayer: help, thanks, wow. Sometimes we need help, and so we pray perhaps to the great universe. Perhaps we meditate and try to connect ourselves with the wholeness around us so that we can be created whole again ourselves. Thanks is when you look around and you see the many small and large things that cradle you, that are gifts, that are blessings for your eyes, your hands, your voice, your heart. Thanks. And wow, look at what is happening around us. We are awestruck by the mightiness and the majesty of the natural world and of the spiritual world and of our own spirits and of those around us. We see together the power and the beauty that can be ours, and we say, wow. And so today I ask you, Spirit of life, holiness of all that is good, of all that we hold up as most worthy, all that we feel down deep in our bellies, grant us help. Give us the humor, the determination, the resources, the help, the friendship, and the science to continue in this hard time and to come out of it still ourselves if changed. And thank you for the many people in this past year who have come together, not only here in this community of souls that we call Community Unitarian Universalist Church, but all around us. We've delivered groceries to our neighbors, and we've had things brought to us as we lay in grief. We have taken care of one another through Zoom. We have found new, exciting ways to be online together, to connect over the phone, to have those front porch deliveries. We have not given up, and we have created something beautiful here. And every one of you is a part of that. Everyone watching this is a part of that. And you have had a hand in that. And thank you. Thank you to you all. I know that I personally have to thank every member of the worship team for sticking by us in this rough year, for contributing your time, your talents, your treasures, for those celebrants who were able to step up and take their courage in their hands and become our online celebrants each week, and for those who helped in other ways, providing ideas, support, love, and just friendship to us as we've gone through this. To our care team, which has done extraordinary work in this time of great trouble and upset for us. They have kept us connected, they've kept us informed, and they have kept us in their hearts this entire year. And of course, before and after, they will do the same. And so thank you to them. Thank you to everyone on the facilities team who has helped us deal with a closed building, deal with mold remediation, deal with a flooded building, and now deal with the repairs and renovations that will come along with that. Yet another change that we will all experience together when we come back to our building. I want to say thank you to the people who are our employees who have kept us running or kept their time for us. I want to say thank you to our bookkeeper, John Elder, and to our receptionist, Connie Meintz. I want to say thank you to every volunteer on every team. I want to say thank you to the board of directors. They have worked tirelessly throughout this in 1,000 seen and unseen ways to try and help encourage our community to keep our bodies and souls together and to make sure that there is a church that we come back to, that our space will be safe and beautiful for us all. So thank you to the board of directors. And finally, I just want to say thank you to you. If you're here, I believe I mentioned this. You are part of this and what makes this work. You are the thing that I am most grateful for. And so, thanks. And wow, we've come through a year, my friends. 52 weeks of online services. 52 weeks of lockdown, 52 weeks of, I don't know, can I go to the grocery store? Is that worth the risk? 52 weeks of trauma and trial and adjustment and overcoming, frankly. 52 weeks of mourning, 52 weeks of anger and upset as we see the many ways that this pandemic has changed our world and allowed much of its ugliness to come to the forefront. Not without help, but the pandemic has been a part of that. And the reason we say wow is that look at where we are. 52 weeks later, there are 3 vaccines available in our country. 52 weeks later, scientists and healthcare workers have dedicated themselves so intensely to this plague and to easing it for those of us who are not medical experts and frontline workers. Wow at them, at their spirits, their souls, the fact that they are still smiling, the fact that some of them broke. Wow. Help, thanks, wow. These are the prayers we have to the Spirit of life, to all that we hold holy, to ourselves and to a universe that we hope is beneficent and that we know is fickle and we also know is worth a wow. I think the whole world feels like mourning, rocking in place for the sick and the dying, the not yet dead and the dead to come. But it is spring, and the trees are green. I'm supposed to be a helper, but what does that even mean now? We're all in this boat on the Sea of Galilee, panicking as everything changes and water washes over the side and slaps me and you and all of us, across the face. The apostles couldn't comfort each other, and I'm not sure I can comfort you. I'm no Jesus. Just another Magdalene, gripping the sides white-knuckled and searching the storm-torn sky for a glimpse of light, an anchoring star. Orientation at last, some direction at least, seeking home and safe harbor. Perhaps salvation is just rousing, stretching sleepy in the bow of the boat, but we can't count on that. We're still here in this storm on the sea together. But the trees are green. Someone told me the birds are singing in Wuhan, and they are here too in my neighborhood. It's no divine GPS, just a reminder, tender or brutal, that it is only we lonely humans who mourn the future with such ease. The world is the world around us, and we are all a sea, and also we are always invited simply to be.
When despair for the world grows in me, and I awake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and sit where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and where the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting to shine their light. For a time I rest in the grace of nature, and I am free.
Spring. March, April, May. In March, we were anxious. In April, we were frightened. By May, the fear was an old bad friend. We were glued to the news. We read articles and essays about epidemiology, virology, and how long it takes to wash your hands. We devoured headlines and chyrons. We grew addicted to media as the virus took shape in our communal minds. Every single day brought new information, updates on safety and mortality rates and hospital bed availability. We consumed it all, and it became a powerful source of the acidic tension and fear of not knowing. Our bellies tightened, our shoulders tensed, our emotions gave us whiplash. Most of us were suddenly homebound. Some of us were suddenly unemployed. Some of us had kids at home. Pent up coils of energy just waiting to bounce all over the house. Every child and tween and teen carried the pandemic tension in their bodies too. They learned how to learn differently, and we parents learned right alongside them willy-nilly. For us in Texas, the coronavirus in the spring was both present and distant. A mounting number of cases, the slowly rising horror as we saw distant places like New York City and Seattle begin to implode, hospital corridors full of patients, bodies placed in morgues, in funeral homes, in refrigerated vans as the death toll rose and rose and rose. It was a hard time. It is a hard time. Today, more than 500,000 Americans have gone, their lives ended, the lives of their loved ones torn or turned upside down. We are still learning to mourn. We have lost a lot. In the silence that follows, you're invited to unmute yourself and speak the struggles, fears, and losses of the long weeks and months of our lockdown. You may also speak them silently in your heart.
My Uncle Howard died in the hospital of COVID.
My mother died 2 months after having COVID.
Our daughter struggled with colorectal cancer through all of these months. We were there with them when they first got the early diagnosis, and so we were able to be of comfort the first month. After that, it was long distance. But she recovered, and she's got a clean bill of health as of November, and we are so grateful.
Yes,
As the pandemic continued, first it was a friend of a friend's daughter, then it was a friend of a friend, then it was a friend getting hospitalized. And luckily, only one of those people, the friend of the friend's daughter, passed away from COVID. But as it got closer and closer to me over the course of the year, I became hyper aware of my own risk factors.
I'd like to name Alicia Garza, a young woman in Waco who died. She's 21 years old. Summer, June, July, August. In June, we were angry. In July, we were angry and burnt out. In August, we baked in the heat and we checked our temperatures daily, or more than once a day. On May 25th, America burst into flames. Our growing awareness of police brutality, institutional whitewashing, and the inequalities of life in the pandemic were brought to a head as we watched George Floyd gasp, choke, and cry out for his mother as he died. Not of COVID-19, but with a police officer's knee pressed into his neck for more than 8 long minutes. In June, July, and August, those who were able took to the streets, wearing masks, carrying signs, chanting the names of Black lives cut short by the easy brutality of white supremacy. We knelt on scalding pavement and bowed our heads and we wept, and then we stood and continued the work, learning to see our places in a system of privilege and power, learning to accept, repent, and begin to repair the deep wounds of our shared heritage. Monuments toppled, but not enough of them. In the silence that follows, you're invited to unmute yourself and speak the frustrations and angers brought by injustice in the long weeks and months of our lockdown. You may also speak them silently in your heart.
The events where the white police officer sat with his knee on the Black man's neck until he died, I've made the racism come really alive for me, because I would not have been treated that way. I was, brings up to me and makes me aware of my own racism and my own need to change and grow and become less racist.
I feel frustration and anger at the inequalities in the ways that medical care is meted out in this country. The fact that the rich are always safer than the poor.
I was disappointed or grieving over the burning of the neighborhood at Lake Street and Chicago Avenue in Minneapolis. That was the first neighborhood of our marriage. It was sad to see it burning.
I am still upset that first line workers like grocery store clerks and delivery people still are not being vaccinated first.
Autumn. September, October, November. In September, we tried again. In October, we braced ourselves. In November, we rallied. It would be dishonest to speak of the coronavirus pandemic without speaking of the ruinous and death-dealing policies and behaviors of our leaders. Many people of good faith continued to work themselves nigh unto death to save us, seemingly against our wills, in some cases. But the bad faith, malice, and greed of those holding the reins of power were the direct cause of despair, pain, and death for hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands. But in November, Americans spoke at the ballot boxes. What followed was a bare-knuckles fight between fascistic greed and the desperate need to save ourselves from ourselves. And here, we began to rise. Led by Black women like Stacey Abrams, thousands of new voters were registered. We couldn't go door to door, so we called, texted, Zoomed, and FaceTimed hundreds of thousands of our compatriots to vote. When the vote was challenged, unlikely heroes emerged on both sides of the aisle. Men like Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia, who chose democracy over demagoguery and stood strong in the face of requests, threats, and coercion. Women like Kamala Harris, who gave us poise, intellect, wit, and some rockin' Vans sneakers. On a more local level, I think of the people I know personally who helped me make sense of the senseless. The ones who cried on us, the ones we cried on. The few precious people in our bubbles, the friends who kept checking in on us when time and fear and anger grew thick in our mouths and silenced us. In the time that follows, you are invited to unmute yourself and speak your thanks. Speak the names of the people who gave you hope and sustained you throughout this plague year. You may also speak them silently in your heart. I'm grateful to my counselor, Rod Hetzel.
We are grateful for Kris.
I'm grateful for my animals, my constant companions through this year.
I'm grateful for my sister who, even though she lives in Henrietta, Oklahoma, keeps the daily hello to make sure that I'm okay.
I'm grateful for Zoom, which has kept us connected with distant daughters.
The calming presence of Joseph Robinette Biden Jr.
I'm grateful for the children who brought us hot soup when we didn't have any power and were freezing to death.
I'm grateful for telemedicine, which has kept me from having to go into the doctor's office and risk exposure there.
I have a lot of gratitude for all the people working in STEM fields who have just kept their heads down and worked and worked and worked to help us. Yeah.
I'm grateful for a husband that has been my partner through the quarantine and the many, many card games in which I have won most of them.
Steve is grateful that you did not give a ratio. Winter. December, January, February. In December, we tried hard. In January, we watched in horror. In February, we took a deep breath. Our December holidays and holy days were just weird. That's how I heard them described again and again. And yet for some of us, they were a gift. We used our new knowledge of technology to gather, to sing, to share, to laugh, and to cry together. 2021 dawned calmly enough, but by January 6th, we knew the calm was a glazed mirror surface, thin and fragile and broken if we looked into it for too long. We watched white supremacist terrorists attack federal guards, hunt Democratic lawmakers through the newly blooded corridors of the Capitol building. And February? For many of us, February came with the rising awareness that this marathon isn't over. There are months yet left of lockdowns and uploads and overwhelm to come. And we've nourished and we have grown new ways of being together. We found the unexpected gifts of our quarantined lives, those who are lucky enough to see them and experience them. The quieter highways and skies, air and water and earth given new breath as the engines of industry and automobiles have slowed. Some of us, we who are privileged to have steady employment and safe homes to stay in, have discovered the hidden joys of life at home. Pajama pants at work, cats in our laps as we work on our laptops. The perilous delight of having our very own refrigerators and pantries available throughout the day. Many of us have found new connections to the natural world, clouds and stars, gardens and trails, walks through our neighborhoods, and watching the bright, busy lives of the birds and squirrels at our feeders. In the silence that follows, you are invited to speak the unexpected or the expected gifts and surprises of this strange and set-apart year. You may also speak them silently in your heart.
I would like to share a little anecdote about speaking about getting closer to nature.
Mm-hmm.
I have experienced noticed things that I never really paid much attention to before, little things. Like at one point in time, we had dozens and dozens of googolplex of robins, I mean, everywhere. And then they left and went elsewhere, except for one solitary robin who, for whatever reason, chose to stay behind and got comfortable right outside our sliding glass door where we eat. We found ourselves every morning looking for that one robin, something that I probably would not have even noticed.
I'm very grateful for the fact that I now know lots of different birds' calls. I did not know that before the pandemic, but I have had the chance to sit outside for hours and hours reading and writing, and I get to hear the birds, and I've learned who they are and what they... It's been wonderful.
You're
Finding grace in solitude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And your comment about the unexpected joys of staying at home, I find that not constantly getting into my car and going someplace has slowed down the pace of my life. And it's been sort of like an extended Sabbath.
I've experienced this past year a lot of fear because of being so concerned about being too close to somebody, about going into a store, about dying because I'm old, so I'll die from this. And then at the same time, I've kind of learned to be in the moment and still be aware of that fear, and that's a blessing. And I've learned to be particular about what I want to do now with my time. I don't want to waste it anymore with things that take my energy.
I actually noticed coming home last night from the store, picking up groceries. It had just gotten dark while I was out. For the last 10 or 12 years, home has not been a pleasant place to be. It's been a difficult time. Last night, for the first time, I saw the light glowing out of my den, and I saw the things that are my past in that room. And I couldn't wait to get in there. You know, it somehow during this pandemic year has miraculously changed into a lovely, welcoming, warm place that I want to be. So that's the gift the pandemic has given me.
That's nice.
You created a home.
Continuing on what Diana had remarked upon, the morning of the flood in the church, I had gone in to try to vacuum up more water. There was still snow on the ground. The whole front parking lot of the church was mostly snow, except for a few tire tracks. And there were literally hundreds, if not 1,000 robins going after all of the berries on that Yopon holly that's just outside the front entrance. Apparently, because of the snow cover, they couldn't find food, and they all congregated in the same location. You know, by the time I left, all the berries were gone, all the robins were gone, and they must have gone off somewhere else to find the next Yopon holly.
Well, that seems like a good time to go on to the end of this reflection that we've created together. Today marks the end of 52 weeks of COVID-19 in our lives and the beginning of who knows.
And Anita wanted to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anita, go ahead.
I wanted to tell you about my neighborhood. I had neighbors who came over and lit my fireplace. I had neighbors who called and offered to bring me something to eat and go shopping for me. And I am so grateful.
Yes, that's certainly a wonderful, unexpected gift, is that we've discovered, you know, that our neighbors care, that we care. Yeah. So as we come today to mark the end of those 52 weeks of COVID-19 in our lives, I wonder, what is beginning now? Where are we? There's a light at the end of the tunnel, as our worship associate Steve Mason said, and it's probably not a train. Vaccines are being produced and given out at astounding speed, finally. And we've begun to look around ourselves out at the world, and again, perhaps an end might be in sight. A gathering could happen. I don't know when we will be able to gather as a church, a whole church again. But when we do, we will bring insight and experience with us. We've learned hard things. We've learned useful and important things, and no one can take that learning from us. We've also gained experience in endurance and in compassion, taking care of ourselves and caring for others. When we come back together, Community Unitarian Universalist Church, what will our hopes be? In the silence that follows, I invite you to speak one word that represents your hopes or your needs for the year to come. You may also speak these silently in your heart.
Hugs and handshakes.
Anyone who wants hugs as soon as I'm back.
Children.
I hope for continued camaraderie.
Generosity.
I'm hoping for close proximity of playing instruments together.
Oh, making music. I can't wait.
Travel.
Mm-hmm.
Kindness.
Bridge.
Swimming.
Travel. And so I will close by just saying this. 525,600 minutes. This is how we measure a year of love in the time of pandemic. Amen.
And you ask me what I want this year, and I try to make this kind and clear, just a chance that maybe we'll find better days. 'Cause I don't need boxes wrapped in string and designer love and empty things, just a chance that maybe we'll find better days. So take these words and sing out loud. Can everyone be forgiven now? 'Cause tonight's the night the world begins again. I need someplace simple where we could live, and something only you can give, and that's faith and trust and peace while we're alive. There was one poor child who saved this world. Now there's 10 million more who fight to live. Can we all just stop and say a prayer for them? So take these words and sing out loud. Can everyone be forgiven now? 'Cause tonight's the night the world begins again. Love tonight and somehow stop this endless fight, just a chance that maybe we'll find better days. I wish everyone was love tonight and somehow stop this endless fight, just a chance that maybe we'll find better days. So take these words and sing out loud, 'cause everyone is forgiven now. 'Cause tonight's the night the world begins again. Oh, tonight's the night the world begins again.
A purpose of our church is to encourage all who gather here to grow more generous in spirit and in action. We give to remind ourselves how fortunate we are. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. At this time, I invite you to freely give to our church. You can do so by mailing a check to our physical address or by going to our website, communityuuchurch.org, and clicking the Donate Now button. Thank you very much.
Carol and I thought we would do this together.
A few years ago, Bob and I began spending more than half the year in Plano. I have 2 daughters and 3 young grandchildren there, and I wanted to be closer. Bob's kids are scattered. We'd each retired to the mountain town of Ruidoso, New Mexico, and we met there. I grew up in a Dutch Reformed church, and as an adult taught Sunday school in the Presbyterian church. However, Bob and I have enjoyed the meetings of a small UU fellowship in Ruidoso. I agree with the values expressed and with the emphasis on freedom for a wide range of beliefs and without the requirement to accept particular doctrines. So, when we came to Plano, we sought a Unitarian group and found this church.
I grew up a Presbyterian and during my child-rearing years was an Episcopalian. However, I didn't come to this church because I was seeking religion in a conventional sense, and I knew that many Unitarian Universalists are not conventionally religious. I enjoyed the services, though I didn't see the need to call them worship services. I preferred to think of them as a celebration and an exploration, a celebration of different aspects of UU principles, and an exploration of the many ways they provide a foundation for a good life. We were struck by the earnestness of their members and their involvement in so many ways of serving both the membership and the broader community.
We've enjoyed interacting with members and getting to know them.
I was especially struck by the quality of the choir and its leadership, and the members welcomed me. As to stewardship, it seems it's only fair that if you find a group meaningful, if you support its purposes, if you enjoy participating in its activities with other members, then you ought to be willing to support it however you can. We joined and then pledged because pledging enables the community to plan rather than to simply respond to whatever level of support appears. We've appreciated Kris's service as pastor very much. And as has been suggested, we plan to increase our pledge to help her to serve a larger fraction of her time with the church.
As our worship time together draws to a close, it is now time to extinguish the chalice. Please speak these words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I'm on high alert for miracles. Signs and portents welcomed here, though not without reservations. Respond, if you please. It was no 40 days in the desert, just the one night. But the chill and forethought of grief trouble me, that I will be gone, that my work might yet be undone, the heartbreak of my sons, and to lose my other half, and everyone I love, my dogs and cats, the bees in the garden, and oh, all the parties I will miss, and the awareness of the good green earth, all of it taken as I let go and am taken too. And yet it is, God does help us all. Unwelcome intruder, death sneaks in or barges in. Death will be thought of, like it or not. Not. That night death came like the Kool-Aid man of mortality, crashing through my walls, all already shaken in recent years, recent griefs and recent tears. That sneaking sumbitch death at every turn rears a faceless head, an empty hand. The walls crumbled then for a while. There in the desert, death sat close beside me. Not too close, but close enough. So, now my walls have fallen and I stand in the square of sunlight that is my life in the long eternity of, well, everything else. Nameless, faceless, fearless, before I became, it seems ungrateful now to fear the same sweet, sleeping state in a time to come. And in the sunlit life I have, let me seek out the prophets and be one as best I can. Let me see signs and visions and hear insistent rhythms, the siren song of paying attention, of being and becoming. And when the dying woman's words remind me of my calling, the pen is the sword of the mind. Cervantes said that. God, Des, let me take up my weapon and wield it for love. The only thing that will echo beyond me when my time comes to sleep. Not yet.